Hey everybody, and welcome to Fix My Coaster Layout. This is a partnership between myself and Andrew at MickanMan's RCT station, where we take user-submitted layouts and we offer suggestions for how to improve them, whether that's through realism or flow or whatever else is asked. So this is episode number 6, but first we're going to roll back to episode number 5 and take a look at what Andrew put together for Thor II's Silver and Gold Log Flume Company. So we looked at mine on my channel earlier that I built, and it's kind of funny how similar Andrew and my layouts ended up becoming. While I did more of a figure-8 design, Andrew sort of went kind of wrapping around this half, and then wrapping around this half, and then doing kind of exactly the same top section that I had, and ending in that splashdown. So kind of funny how those things work out and those designs come together. So he kept the station relatively the same, inline station, exit station, and an entrance station, which I think is kind of nice. And we start out with this nice little meandering section here as we hit our lift hill. I really like this section here up top, this just kind of a bunch of switchbacks back and forth. It really has that kind of classic Arrow log flume feel. I do like the use of the bobsled track here as the sidewalls. I think that's really nice. We've got our first drop right here with a photo section down at the bottom. A little bit of some S-bends and things like that down here. And also a nice little tunnel, which I think is always one of those really nice things to have on a flume in general. So next up we got our big lift hill here with a nice little gear underneath of there. I think that's a good feature with open door here, walkway across to this covering. And then our kind of windy top section here with the drop. And as you may recall from mine, this was something that Thor II asked us to keep, was the side friction drop and little airtime hill there. Got these great little splash pieces here. And then I really like this on the exit pathway over top. We got those barrels dumping some water down below, so you get that last minute soak. If the splash didn't get you, these things sure will right here. Not a super long queue, but certainly popular enough. We can see it's already spilling out the backside there. Good mine theming throughout, so as the name would suggest, Silver and Gold would suggest that it's a mine theme, which is what I stuck with, and Andrew did the same. So we've got kind of that mine scenery sort of scattered throughout. The standard stuff kind of here and there, and then some more custom build things up towards the top side. I do like this little waterfall behind it on the backside there, and I also like using the use of this. I don't know if it's which expansion pack it is, but the wood walls here. I think those log walls kind of work pretty nicely for this whole area. But pretty nice entry overall, and a good rework of the original layout. So definitely check out his video for this to see the whole build process. But now let's turn our attention to today's episode, and let's look at what we've gotten submitted. Today's submission is an Arrow corkscrew coaster submitted to us by Nighthawk239. This layout is inspired somewhat by Great American Scream Machine, formerly over at Six Flags Great Adventure, and has a pretty cool dueling effect that we're going to see here in action as the train comes off of the lift hill here. We get this drop into a really fast kind of low corner, and then we've got these kind of opposing hills. And we take these corners at the same speed and then through those two loops together, and then each one sort of goes their separate ways here from then on. So the ask was to make a attempt at some realism improvements and also try and keep some level of racing / dueling effect. There was also an ask to try and make sure that the coaster does not stop on the mid-course brake run or the lift hill, and just to kind of do overall sort of quality of life improvements to this layout. So it's got some of those typical Arrow trademarks that you would expect. So it's got the batwing element, it's got the corkscrews, although not back-to-back, which is more typical. And then the loops are usually back-to-back as well, but they're separated in this instance. We have a final helix, which is a pretty common thing. Airtime hill is less common, but not totally unrealistic by any means. But we've got this track on the ground that we're going to want to get off the ground a little bit. We're going to want a longer brake run that can accommodate all three trains, and we'll definitely add some brakes here to the mid-course and just improve a little bit of the speed and pacing of the whole thing as well. I don't think we're going to be able to get this kind of level of dueling effect, even though it is gorgeous, but from Down to some of the more realistic type layouts, I don't think we're going to be able to get that amount of dual, but we'll definitely add in something there that will give us a little bit of a look. So without further ado, let's get into the layout build. All right, so let's get started on our layout. I want to keep a similar layout of inversions, 2 corks, 2 loops, batwing. We might add 1 or 2, probably 1 more maybe just in case. I like this drop into fast corner, into hill, and then kind of other stuff. And I also like the mid-course kind of with the curving drop into the batwing. That's a very classic Arrow move there. So we're going to try and incorporate those things into a kind of slightly more realistic layout. So let's grab our right here, and we're going to start right onto the lift hill because I'm not quite sure what I want to do with my station just yet. I don't know if I want it on the 90 degree off of the lift hill. I kind of maybe want to do a 180 degree corner into it. All right, so let's go up and we can end at like maybe 105 here. Let's see where that lands. That's a little too high. Let's go 1 less. So we're going to make sure we tick our chain lift down 1, just because you always want to go up and over with your chain. You don't want to stop it just on the flat. Then we'll go straight to steep and do this corner. So rather than that sort of bump into a straight drop that we saw on the submitted layout, I like this as more of a classic Arrow style drop. You see this on the big 3, we'd call them. So Shockwave at Six Flags Great America, Great American Scream Machine, Six Flags Great Adventure, and Viper at Six Flags Magic Mountain, of which that's the only one that's still left, unfortunately. So we're going to do this drop. We're going to smooth it out on the bottom by adding another flat piece, and then we're going to make sure that it's flat before we bank. So while we can go flat and bank right here, we want to at least flatten out before we bank. Arrow geometry is kind of rudimentary, so not only does it make it smoother, it fits better anyway. So let's set up for this diagonal corner. Again, we're going to go flat before we go up, or diagonal hill, I should say. Go up 2, because we're at 100 here, and then this will put us at 75, which is not bad. And then I kind of like the idea of crossing the lift here. And then what I'm thinking is Viper kind of did this 90 degree corner here into like a loop here, then did a 180, and then had 2 loops kind of by the side of the lift hill. So I'm wondering if we can maybe get some loops in next to the lift with I don't know. One of the big things with Arrow coasters is that their inversions tended to be high off the ground. It was really just whatever that optimal speed was for the inversion. All the inversions were sized the same, so it was just raised or lowered off of the ground until we hit that that speed. So actually, what I'm going to do, I think if we bank like this, let's do a reverse sidewinder, which will be a new inversion for this, but it will kind of run through and get us lined up with the lift hill, so we can maybe even put our our brakes and station maybe here actually. So let's we'll leave that straight piece before the lift hill. I always want a straight piece beforehand. Do this, and then let's give ourselves a 6 tile station so that we can get a 7-car train. The smaller, and there we go. Okay, so 6 tiles for 7 cars. And then we can add in, we determined brake run of some kind. It'll be approximately that long. We'll replace that with actual brakes here in a minute. So I want to see what kind of speed I've got through this reverse sidewinder here, which is also called a dive loop, although different shaping. They're very different from the B&M. So kind of slow over the airtime hill, but I like that. That's good. Not too bad through there, but we need this extra downwards piece just to give us a little bit more speed here for our inversion. So we're going to throw in back-to-back loops, although I'm adding a flat piece under each one because I want that kind of smooth space kind of thing. So if we turn around, and you can see here, if we did just one right after the other, it's kind of close together. I mean, it definitely has that original RCT type feel, but it doesn't feel good realistically. So we're gonna just leave it as this. And then let's see what our speed is here as we work up to probably our mid-course brake run. Right, so not bad through there. That's about right. That's about right. So okay, so I'm happy with that pacing. The layout that was submitted was pretty long, actually. I think it was... oh, no test result. Pop that down. Let's see how long that one is, because it's very long. It's a little too long, honestly, for a typical Arrow coaster. So we want to hit the block brakes here pretty quickly. So we can maybe go to... we'll kind of run to the side here. Oh, actually, you know, if we want to set up for a dual moment, because we talked about that earlier, maybe we try and cross it over top of the first drop, which would mean our mid-course doesn't want to go there. It could go... let's go 1, 2, up, and then... ah, good. The clearances work just fine there. Let me make sure I don't have clearances on. Okay. So this works, and I like this because I'm keeping some of my service things in line. So I've got my lift hill, and I've got my block brake here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we will put the block brake right here. Which, let's go ahead and bring that back to continuous circuit just so I can let this still run. But that puts these in line together, just offset. We don't want them stacked, but they're offset, which means that now we've got the ability to run a staircase up the lift hill and then also connect it to our mid-course brake run here. Now, hopefully this fits underneath. I'm a little bit worried about how this is going to go clearance-wise, but not bad, not bad. Okay, so we fit it in just barely there, so that same sort of mid-course brake, curve drop, and then our batwing element. So we do want a flat piece on the bottom of the batwing. We could do a bow tie as well, and kind of cross like that. Let's do a batwing instead. Let's go classic. Because what I'm thinking here is that we can actually curve kind of back under, and then do the corkscrews. Yeah, that works actually really well. So I think, just based on my timing so far, we only have the one train here. I think we should have a good chance of the dual right here, depending on our lift hill speed and our brake speed. And as always, I remind you, the dueling and racing are two different things in coaster speak. So dueling is when you have coasters coming head to head or basically crossing in some way. Racing is side by side. So coasters that race do not duel. Or if you have something like Lightning Racer, for example, at Hershey Park, which both races and duels. But side by side is not dueling. Side by side is racing. So we're going for that duel moment in this instance. Right through there. And I ended with the helix because I kind of liked the way that if we're turning through here, I want to keep on turning. So one of my big things in RCD as far as flow goes is to really try and roll out of elements into other elements and try and avoid just 90-degree corners, and in some cases try and avoid 180-degree corners. So rarely am I going to go flat through a 180. So we'll notice that, you know, this one continues onto the diagonal, this one continues onto the diagonal, this is coming off of the diagonal. We've got a 180 here, but it's inclined and then flat. We've got one here, but it rolls right into this inversion and then right out. Same thing with this one. Now we'll have our final helix. Now typically a final arrow helix would probably be a little bit tighter. Let's take Vortex at Kings Island, for example. But in this instance, it's kind of fit okay. We want to end this pretty quickly because we want to make sure that this train, after it comes through this mid-course block, gets through its elements and then gets through the first block break on the brake run before the next train gets to the mid-course. Because we don't want an issue with stacking like the submitted layout had, which is one of the requests that was made, was to do something to fix that. So typically we're going to do some shorter sections overall. All right, then we'll go add a couple of straight pieces there at the end. So That's not a bad layout. Let's check just out of curiosity. What did this one turn out to be lengthwise? So this one is 4,245 feet, which is pretty long for an Arrow looping coaster. Let's check this one here. So we're going to go with 3 trains. Oh, that means, because it spawned right there, that means we didn't put the block brake in the right spot. If the block brake isn't far enough back and the other train is sitting on top of it still, like if the back car is still sitting on top of it, it won't stack it in the right place. So here we go, and now we've got that one right there as well. So let's go with, we'll start with the 4 miles an hour, and let's see what it does. I'm going to speed this up just a little bit. All right, we're plenty clear of the mid-course brake run before the other one is up the lift hill, which is good. But we're going to be a little bit too slow here arriving for this next train. So let's see what would happen if we go to 5 miles per hour. Speed-wise for everything else looks pretty good. We also want to make sure that first train that's arriving back at the station now has plenty of time to park, load up, and get dispatched if we're trying to get this duel right, because we want to make sure that it's not holding and waiting on any kind of loading once the next train clears the lift hill. Because we want to make sure that as soon as that one's off the lift hill, the next one's out, because that's our timing section. All right, so this may actually work. We want this train to get here a little early, which is perfect. Just like that. That's great. So the reason that I want the corkscrew train to get there faster than the drop train is because the drop train is the one that's going to have the visual here. So in the corkscrews, unless you're really looking up at this, you're not really going to see a whole lot of this dual moment. But the ones down the drop, that's all they're going to be looking at, is this train coming across. So I want to make sure that this one is slightly lagging behind, so that when we're looking down this drop at this track that crosses over, not only is it a great head chopper moment here, where that clearance is low, but also you get this whole view of the train from everybody as that passes by. So that's really good. I'm happy with how that turned out. So kind of in the spirit of the original layout, we've got that drop, we've got that corner, we've got that hill, 2 loops, 2 corkscrews, a batwing element, 3 trains, no stacking. We added that reverse sidewinder here, so that's something unique at least. But I think all that's left now is to theme it. So I may have gotten a little carried away in the theming, and this is a little bit heavier theming than all of the other Fix My Coaster layouts so far. I decided that I wanted to do proper Arrow coaster supports, and one thing led to another, and now we have a whole themed coaster layout. So, whoops, but I'm pretty happy with it. If you follow my Twitch channel, you might have seen me streaming this. I actually streamed some of the theming process on this. So if you're not followed to the Twitch channel, feel free to go check that out, and you might see more of this kind of thing in the future. So we painted this coaster the same colors as the original submission from Nighthawk. We've got those red track elements. I went with this yellow, orange, and red train theme, because I always do like having train colors that are different colors across each. And then I kind of went with this sort of retro futurism type vibe. So I've been on a big kick lately where I really love Gemini at Cedar Point. Love the station design and the colors and the gradients and all that kind of thing. So we did the same, just with this red to yellow gradient layout. It was a suggestion on the stream, I believe, of maybe doing the queue through the batwing element, which was a really cool idea, I thought, which ended up leading to some elevation changes here as far as the overall height of landscape around goes, which I really definitely subscribe to adjusting landscape around, even a flat terrain. There is really no such thing as flat terrain. You really want to have little bits of adjustment. So we go from, let's turn on the height markers here, we go from -5 here all the way up to 15, which is not a lot, but it's enough to give us a little bit of variation. So we did some custom scenery supports here. We've got our transfer track knocked in here, which fits just nicely through here. We have space for 2 trains inside and 1 train out back. We do have the queue running through that batwing element, which I think is pretty cool. a little bit of some switchback for the queue up and into the area or the load station, and then our exit out through the gift shop and past some lockers right here. I also set up a nice little plaza in front of our entrance, and then also this great viewing area here for this first drop. We really want to make sure that the ride has plenty of viewing space for the whole thing, especially this first drop, corkscrews, and dueling element, because really that's what the guests are going to be looking for. You want to make this ride palatable from the pathway. I really like the idea of this plaza here right up against the boomerang element or the batwing, because it reminds me of Vortex at Kings Island, which did a very nice job right next to the midway of having sort of a half-buried batwing right there. So definitely wanted to go for that same kind of layout. And then I've set this up so it could become a park. You know, you could go off and expand your pathway in a couple of different ways and then have something that looks sort of like this. But the supports themselves, Arrow typically used a lot of lattice supporting, which is what we're doing here. So this is kind of based off of how Arrow would typically do their supports. And then a lot of columns elsewhere. So not too complex as far as just the overall design goes, but we made it a challenge for ourselves here where we basically had triple stacked track. We have this return leg, the drop, and our turn into the mid-course here. So we had to get kind of clever with some beams and some other stuff here just to make sure it looked right. But we did that, and I think it did turn out not too shabby. So that is it for today's episode. Thank you to Nighthawk for that submission, and thank you very much for all the other submissions that we have gotten. Gotten plenty, but if you'd also like to submit yours, feel free to send that layout to fixmycoasterlayout@gmail.com. We accept RCT1 and RCT2 files, so that's .td4, .sv4, .td6, .sv6, and .park. So all of those are options for you. Make sure you let us know what you want to be called on your username or whatever, and any kind of stipulations you have as far as layout design goes, so we know what we're working towards, what kind of things you're looking for in the layout. We've gotten a number of submissions so far, so definitely thank you for that, which also means, though, that it's taken quite a while. I know this has been a month since the last episode. Hopefully, the next one will happen sooner, but we never know. If you're not following the Twitch channel, like I mentioned earlier, you can find a link to that below. You can also join our Discord channel, where we have a lot of good conversations, suggestions for future streams, and just, in general, a fun hangout atmosphere. I'll also link to Andrew's channel as well, so you can check out his episode and how he approaches this Arrow corkscrew coaster. And of course, next episode we'll look at what he did first before we get into the layout. So with all that said, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and we will catch you in the next one. Bye now.